Decans. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Practical Astros Storytime. We are going to talk about the 3 decans of Scorpio, and I've invited my token Scorpio friend. Just kidding. I feel like all my friends are Scorpios or Geminis. My favorite astrologer Scorpio friend, Mandi Rae, who is also my forecast buddy. We do all the forecasting each month. So thanks, Mandi, for joining me for this. A little bit different of a vibe. We're just going to talk about Scorpio, the 3 decans of Scorpio, the rulers, and just Scorpio as a sign. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell the world kind of what you do and what you have to offer to the astrology world?
Sure, I'm Mandi Rae of Ecstatic Astrology, and you spell that Ecstatic. It's really hard. I don't know why I did that, but ecstasy means to stand outside oneself, and that's how I approach astrology. I do just about every type of technique. So come see me, ecstaticastrology.com.
Do it. Okay, so we're going to start with the cards that are associated with Scorpio. So can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, so we start with the 5 of Cups, which is the tarot card associated with the first decan of Scorpio. We have the Tower card, which in tarot is representing Mars, and we have the Death card, which we'll see throughout all 3 Scorpio decans. So this card is called the Lord of Disappointment, but I like just disappointment in itself altogether. Just visually, the person that is in this 5 of Cups card has kind of maybe a cloak of mourning. He's covered in black. His head is down, or her head is down. The head is facing these 3 cups that are spilled over, tipped over. He does have 2 cups still upright behind him, but there is this sense of kind of recognizing what has been lost, what has spilled out, even though there is still some reserves behind him. But it's like, is the character a little bit lost in the mourning of what is gone? And that just in a nutshell, we become disappointed very easily in things that we love when they go away. And just doing a little bit of reading about this card, researching this card a little bit more, what kept coming up was the reason why we hold things sacred and we mourn things is because we love them. So throughout all the Scorpio cards, you're going to see this like sense of deep love. And with all the water signs, water just as an element of connection and emotion. Cups are in the emotional realm in tarot, but it's not cruelty and it's not just hardship for hardship's sake. It's like really experiencing and embodying the emotional realm. And I think that just the 5 of Cups really kind of sets us off here of we mourn things because we love them. And what are your thoughts just on the 5 of Cups card in general, Andy?
Yeah, I think as far as the 5 of Cups card goes, I think the capacity to hold space for people who have also lost is there as well. And then coming out of, I think of this coming out of Libra, because you're just done with this wonderful, beautiful Venus energy and its natural entropy as well. Like everything has to come to an end, and it's the acknowledgement of that. And yeah, I do like what you were saying about he still has some reserves. There's some there, and they become very important, like those reserves to at least Scorpio 1 individuals.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the 3 kind of tipped over, and then the 2 upright, I think of the 3 of Cups, which is like this celebratory card. It's the Lord of Abundance. It's like 3 female characters all kind of dancing around, clinking their cups together. A lot of times that card will come up when there's this momentary respite of celebration, like the night before you go to war. You're going to just party down because eat and drink for tomorrow we may die. This is like, well, those girls are dead.
Yeah.
And so kind of just honoring that, death exists only because life exists, and life exists only because death exists. So the death card as Scorpio is here to kind of be that shadow creator. Like the sun, if there was nothing to cast a shadow, the sun would just be invisible. We wouldn't have anything to bounce it off of. And to stand in the sun and to be able to cast shadow, you start to see that there is this binary of light and absence of light. And Scorpio is right there ready to kind of show show the dark side, because it's, again, it's not just, I think that like there's this trope about Scorpio of being kind of this like hot topic goth, only like the dark things because they're dark. It's like, no, it's because that's superficial and petty. Scorpio is not those things. Scorpio is not petty. They might act in petty ways as a response of some sort of really deep, intrinsic, very, very rooted emotional connection that comes from love. Like it or not, Scorpio, we know you do this because you love so absolutely deeply. But the Tower card I wanted to kind of bring up, because the Tower is one of these cards that is like super unpopular when people get them in readings, because you see it and you're like, does that mean my world is about to crash down? It's like, well, maybe. Scorpio, just as like a plot line, means that you live a life of transformation. And if you have Scorpio placements, then you're probably used to it at this point. Like if you're an adult and you're like, yep, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to your Scorpio qualifications? We didn't really get into that. Do you have any placements in this particular decan?
Oh, yes. I have Pluto at 0 degrees and Saturn at 9. So spans the decan really.
Yeah.
And I've had these moments all of my life. I also have a 22-degree sun, so I have a third decan placement as well. So Scorpio is something I have had to learn to work with, especially with regards to the death card. I mean, I had a partner who passed away, my child's father did. So having those experiences and no control over it is also a huge part of it. I think that's where the entropy comes from. It's like this, you have to acknowledge that what goes up must come down, yin, yang, that's it. So, I mean, the Tower card now, I think seeing it is kind of like, okay, I guess here we go again, almost like a playful thing at this point, because how else can you look at that? How else can you greet death but with thanks for the life? Why fill up a cup if you're not going to empty it in some way? So those ideas are something that I've had to get acquainted with for sure. And Pluto is it's an outer planet, and it can be very mysterious, I think, but I think that's the nature of all of these cards, is the mystery and what is behind that veil. We don't know what death is like. We can't. I mean, not really. I do love near-death experiences and reading them, and I do all the time, because I just want to see, what is it? It's so scary to people, and it's so it invites fear. And I see that in others, and how much I've had to work with that archetype, and how much I've had to just confront it in multiple ways. So it becomes this thing where it is mysterious, and Pluto is transformation. I love Pluto and the Tower card together. I know not everyone puts them together, but I do in my own head. And I think that having Pluto at 0 degrees, that just PowerPoint entrance into Scorpio, brought those experiences to me in ways that were unavoidable, undeniable. And then Saturn there, I think too, I mean, it's more of a, you have to master this than anything. And so these cards are, when I get them specifically for myself, not when I'm, looking at other people, but when I get them for myself, I know that it's a moment in which I will look back on and go, that's when things changed again,
Yeah.
And it changes completely.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I think of with the Tower is, there's this external energy, with that lightning bolt coming down and striking the Tower, striking the crown off, kind of taking the authority away, the artificial authority away. and releasing all of that energy, all those little yellow flecks that look like flames. In tarot they're called gods, and they're just like potent little nuggets of energy that are released. And so if something is built up over too long of a time, it's like a snake has to shed its skin in order to continue to grow. And just the idea of transformation, of kind of growing out of old skin, like that is this moment, that is this, things crumbling away so that new things can grow. But also what this card can show is, if we think of water as the emotional realm and the spiritual connection to spirit, to animals, to nature, to ancestors, connection to people outside of those ones that we just talk to every day, this lightning bolt can be that illumination through spiritual work.
Mhm.
And if you create structures that you hold or house your spiritual beliefs in, those should also continue to grow. And a lot of times you'll have these kind of crisis of faith that you have to allow to crumble so that you can grow fortified and stronger beyond it. If you stick to old belief systems, usually they just kind of become ingrown and suffocating. And the tower moments for those are actually just such great blessings. So I like that, just for, you can also have it as like sudden things outside of your control, like having a partner die. Death as an experience is deeply felt, and often felt, through Scorpio placements, if you have them in your chart, and a lot of times out of your control. That's the thing about this Five of Cups. It's like something sudden happened that is now taken away. And while that can be just like a physical death of things that you love, it can also be something that you kind of brought on yourself that is actually necessary. And kind of using those moments of honoring. And actually, I'm going to stop this and share something. So one of the things that I kind of came up with when I was thinking about this Five of Coins or Five of Cups card is the movie Secret Life of Pets. And there's this point in the movie where it's like a throwaway shot and a throwaway line, but one of the characters has like a comrade that has died, and they just say R.I.P. Ricky. And I say this a lot, and it's this duck that died, and they just flash to this little altar of Ricky with all of the candles and the pictures of them as friends. And I say like R.I.P. Ricky all the time in my head when I see an ambulance go by or read a sad story. It's like this, like just saying the words and like honoring those that have gone. That's a way to kind of use the Five of Cups.
Absolutely.
The reason I bring this up is that this decan is the decan that crosses over Halloween, Day of the Dead, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. This is a time that we do honor the dead. And it's is it coincidental? Probably not, that this is the decan that we use for Halloween, that we let me stop it again. It's like it just tracks.
It does track so well. And that's what I mean. I think that not invitation to death, but that almost making friends with that is part of this deck. And instead of letting it overcome you with fear, which I think that this decan can bring in people who maybe haven't either had a chance to work with this energy or just haven't experienced it a lot in their life. Eventually everyone does in some way, whether it be a job that you lose, or that's what the idea of this is. So to work with that and make friends with it rather than fear it is, I think, just valuable, and what maybe it invites us to do.
Yeah. I wrote down a quote from the Susan Ching book. She wrote, sacrifice or to make sacred implies loss. And it's lost because of love. And sometimes it's because there was something more meaningful that you desired. So if you're, again, like looking at just crisis of faith, if you're desiring something new, you can still honor it. You can still RIP Ricky, you can still pour one out for somebody that's gone in order for you to continue on your journey. And it doesn't mean by changing or outgrowing or having that tower moment for yourself personally, it doesn't negate everything that led you up to that point. It just empowers that you're not stuck there.
Mhm.
Because stagnant water, like here in the South, just breeds mosquitoes. It breeds death itself. So while still water can be good for a little while, it should always flow. Water should always be flowing.
Yes, it's funny because right now I'm having a Saturn trine to my Saturn. Sort of, it's a little bit off now, but I have felt stagnant in that,
Hmm.
and I think that makes sense with what a trine does, and it's just that extra water that's coming into my life,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, okay, it's just I need something to move. I need it
Mm-hmm.
to move. So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to stay stuck and stagnant.
Well, Mars is in Cancer. Is that activating things for you at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hopefully.
um, uh,
Well, not by choice. It's the tower moments. That's
right, right. That's the arrow of Mars going pew pew.
but again, that's when you go, yay. Like if you
Yeah.
have been stuck and stagnant, please move it.
Yeah.
You want it to move.
Yeah. Another thing, Susan Chang is like my favorite tarotista of all time. So I reference her all the time. I think about like things that she said. I've taken classes with her. And one of the first like remediations, if you would call it that, is that on days that she's pulled the tower, she will do like sympathetic magic. And she'll do this like if she pulls like the 10 of swords, she'll go buy 10 sewing needles, like, okay, that has already been, the requirements have been fulfilled. I don't need to have a 10 of swords moment. But she would do this for the tower, and I've done this before. She's pulled the tower and decided like I really am not in the space or have the bandwidth for like a big tower moment. So she would just crawl headfirst down the stairs in front of her house and stand up and say the requirements have been fulfilled. And
My neighbors would probably
well,
call the police or something.
I did that because I have a flight of, I have like just like porch stairs that go down to my driveway. And I pulled it when I was pulling daily pulls, and I was like, I'm Mars ruled, and Mars is my malefic contrary to sect. And so I pay attention to Mars.
Mm.
And I pulled this card and I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so I crawled down my stairs, and there was like cars like zipping by. And like if what fell away was my pride and ego of like being embarrassed in front of my neighbors, I will take that as a sacrifice over having a larger tower moment that I've had these moments before that have put me in the hospital, so I'll take that before. And so the concept of sacrifice, especially with Mars, is big because Mars
Mm.
requires blood. Mars requires something. You got to give something up in order to get something else. There's like it is kind of contractual in that way. Mars just
Yeah.
doesn't provide. Mars requires. And so with the tower, it's like give Mars something to do and channel that energy, and be instead of it happening upon you, you can kind of like ride the wave a little bit more, ride the wave of flames as you fall down and head first. Maybe you'll land on soft rocks instead of the spiky rocks down there at the bottom of the card.
Mm. I love Pluto as Mars counterpart
Mm.
too, because it's just it does happen with Pluto, uh, planetary wise anyway.
Yeah. All right. So we go from disappointment, Mars ruled Decan, to this glorious Lord of Pleasure.
Mm.
So the other Mars ruled sign is Aries, and they have a similar um, sequence. So the first decan of Aries is ruled by Mars, the second is ruled by the Sun, and the third is ruled by Venus. And that's the same for Scorpio here. And so of all of the Scorpio decans, this one is like the happiest one, but it still has that like tinge of death. Death as a Scorpio card exists. And so yeah, what are your thoughts just on this spread and on the Six of Cups that we'll talk about?
Well, I mean, it does suit, uh, it suits me better. I wish I had second deck in Scorpio. But I guess by progression, I probably have in some way. So, I mean, it all is a growing and changing thing. And so I think I've learned some of these lessons as well, which is it's always darkest before the dawn
Mhm.
kind of idea. And that's what this spread says to me,
Yeah.
and that's why the death comes in. It's the appreciation for the life because of the death.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't do any descriptions of the cards. So, real quickly, I've described the tower before. The death card, though, is a skeleton wearing armor, which is kind of funny because if he's a skeleton, like, what is he there protecting? Right.
Mm.
He's got a red feather that's kind of fallen on his helmet. He's carrying a black flag with a white rose. He's riding a white horse. There is death around him. There's like dead bodies laying. It looks like a pope or a priest like praying, on his knees, or at least lower than the horse. It's pretty gruesome below death. I do like that at the horizon there's these two pillars that look like the moon card. In the tarot, the moon have these pillars, and you see beyond them. It's similar to the high priestess card, which can sometimes be considered like looking from the other direction of the moon, but you have either the sun rising or setting along the horizon line. But it's a pretty gruesome scene. The Five of Cups has a character wearing black. 3 cups are tipped over, their liquid spilled out, 2 cups are still upright. There's a bridge crossing over a body of water, most likely a river leading to a town. So there's that he's still connected slightly. But in the 6 of Cups, we still have the death card. There are some similarities here with the sun card here. The child that is on the sun also has a red feather, but it's kind of like completely upright and wearing a garland and is completely nude as an antidote to a skeleton that is wearing armor to protect his bones, I guess. But the feather is kind of has lost its life. So I like the dichotomy between this brilliant, glorious, happy sun card and this pretty gruesome medieval post-war scene of the death card. But in the middle, we have the 6 of Cups, Lord of Pleasure. There's 2 children, or at least smaller people, representing kind of just youth, and everything is golden. The cups are golden, the houses are golden. There's little white lilies and all the flowers. There's so many flowers, especially in this spread. Like even in the death card, there's flowers on in the hair of the people that are dead, but there's flowers there. And there's flowers in the cups. There's sunflowers in the sun card. The language of flowers and kind of what they hold. Cut flowers, especially, like they die pretty quickly, but we still embrace them. We still love them. They kind of remind us that life is short. Stop and smell the roses. Like literally, what this person is doing. One of the characters on the card is like has its face down next to this white flower as he's handing it off to the child in front of it. Also, all the gold color reminds me of just those moments where you get the perfect light. Like I've had this at the beach a lot, summertime. Sometimes you get it in winter. But when like everything just has a tint to it, it can be like that pink hour, where even the water kind of like pulsates with like the same color. And so it's, yes, middle decan of Scorpio. We're reminded that we're constantly surrounded by death, but death exists because of the dichotomy of its relationship to life. And in the middle of that, we have this momentary, just get it while it's hot, enjoy it for a while we can, and and find the pleasure in life, even if that death is approaching.
Yes. And because death is approaching.
Right,
Stop and smell the
because death is
roses.
approaching.
Beautiful. Especially the golden tint. That's, I always feel such an appreciation in my heart whenever I see uh the sky look like that, or anything with that red gold tint
Mm-hmm.
to it. And there is the orange and the sun card kind of speaks to that to me, just that beauty that life is. And it's so it wouldn't be without the hardships that I would probably have that feeling though, that appreciation. It's just such an opposite, an antidote to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of the other sixes in tarot, and, sixes can be kind of the perfection of a suit. It's an even number. So there's a balance to it. It comes just after fives, and fives are usually a little, usually related to discord, like see the Five of Cups.
Mm.
The Five of Wands is like super, it's like battle between these five characters. But when you get to the six, there's like this temporary peace, there's an enjoyment of the suit. And of all the water signs, this middle decan of Scorpio, it's ruled by the sun. And there's, I don't know, it's like this, there's a kindness or a compassion to this card, which I think that Scorpio has such deep capacity for. And maybe it's because it's always like tinted. There's like Scorpio tinted glasses that Scorpios cannot remove. And the compassion, because of the water, because of that connection, that emotional connection, there's this kind compassion, that comes from this card of this character kind of handing over, like, just very sweetly, like the sweetness of this decan, like you said, because of death. It's like, we know,
Mm.
but for the grace of God go I, like, I'm going to treat people kindly because I don't know what they're going through. I'm going to choose the compassion for it. And again, I think Scorpio kind of gets this hard edged, gothy, kind of isolated rap, which I think honestly belongs more to Capricorn than it does Scorpio. That there's such deep compassion and kindness with this one. And
Yeah,
yeah.
this is like the Leo archetype mixed in with
Mm.
Scorpio. And I love Leo Scorpio people because they are the hot topic goth girl.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that is what this decan kind of says to me. And this even, it's like, yeah, I will almost revel in it, in the
Mm.
beauty of it all, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I'll make death beautiful. It is let's see, what dates are the second decan?
So if the first 10 days are roughly October 22nd, 23rd over Halloween, this would be like the, we could just look it up, I
Yeah,
guess.
like the
It's the first week of November.
mhm.
Um, yeah, so there's nothing, like, at least in celebration, there's there's nothing too much that's happening collectively. It's going to be in between Halloween and Christmas, Halloween and Thanksgiving for
Yeah.
the US.
It's the
It's like,
middle, like the harvest time.
yeah, yeah.
It feels like we do that harvesty type, you know, even like pumpkin patches and things of that nature. I know that's more of a Halloween thing, but people still decorate with the pumpkins. They know Thanksgiving's coming, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't personally decorate for Thanksgiving, but some people do.
Yes.
And it's that preparation to celebrate a little bit is kind of what I feel in the middle of November.
Yeah.
Um,
This year it's November 2nd to November 12th. So
and
it's like that.
Veterans Day is
Yeah.
November 11th. Yeah,
Yeah.
so even just that honoring uh what those people have given,
Mm.
which is really related to death a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Military veterans deal with that idea. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of what the point of their existence is, unfortunately, is to protect. And to protect, you have to um, be very acquainted with the idea of death, I think. So my dad was a Marine, and he's got Jupiter in this decan. So
Mm.
I kind of really didn't think about that until just now, and how the honoring of the veterans of the sacrifice is there too, maybe in that
Mm.
decan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just like this skeleton wearing armor, it has been said that, like, even though it doesn't have organs to protect and why you would wear armor, it's doing it for the ritual and for the duty, and to the honor the job that death has. Like, death
Mm.
always shows up. Death always is right on time. to do its duty. And there is this sense of honor and being the one sure thing of always being there when it's supposed to be there. And so yeah, I almost think about it too, like if we think about it just in, Western culture, between Halloween and like the festivities of December, really. There isn't a lot that we have to do during this time. In the Northern Hemisphere, everything is pretty much dead. All the plants are dead. It's cold. Everything, like even the mums, are kind of artificially colorful. Everything else is like, there's not the distraction of all of this abundance that's going on. So we have this moment of just like enjoying what we have, not having the obligations to go to family events kind of during this period, because things have just happened, things will happen. There's like this kind of eye in the storm of the holidays that is this week, this 10 days where the obligations don't seem to be too grand. And so maybe there is just this time, this rest to, I mean, honestly, you're kind of probably making plans of what you're going to do for the holidays, making plans of what you're going to do next year. You might have some nostalgia and some thoughts of, how the year has been, what the upcoming year will be. There is a sense of memory with water. And so, yeah, this is the decan that my ascendant is in. And so I've spent a lot of time with this card trying to glean kind of all of the intricacies of what this decan could mean. And honestly, it's just enjoy it while you have it. My grandmother used to sing the song, like, enjoy yourself, it's later than you think, enjoy yourself while you're still in the pink. And that's what I think of this decan a lot. It's like tomorrow isn't a guarantee, but death is. So on that note, enjoy. Okay, so we go from Scorpio 2 to Scorpio 3. This again is the sequence is the same with the other Mars ruled sign. We go from Mars, the sun, to Venus. And, Venus is not at home in Scorpio. Venus is at home in its neighboring sign of Libra and the opposing sign of Taurus. And here in 2024, we're about to experience Venus in Scorpio. She's going to be kind of an active player for the month of October. But for this right here, this is the decan that your sun is in. And we have this dichotomy of Venus, which is like the kind of a life giver, and death, which is the death bringer. So how do you reconcile kind of just the influence of Venus and the temple of Mars accompanied with this death card here?
I think it's a natural reaction to and I've dealt with this personally, if you see that death is always there, there is a certain sense of, I'm just going to enjoy it in the way I want to, that I don't think you can really avoid, because what's the point if not a little debauchery?
It's called the Lord of Debauch.
So, and I think having I can't separate Scorpio from power and ownership as well. And I think that kind of goes along with the feeling of the Empress and gosh, even death, it's power, it's pure power. So this, and being ruled by Venus too, or being the Venus decan, I should say, it feels like there's a lot of gifts in it, and that you might overuse those gifts, or you might take them for granted a little bit, because what's the point anyway? Right. So, I mean, I can't really speak to the tarot as much as you can, but I can speak to, I think, how you can take that and learn how to tame it, and then it becomes such a power player, that decan, so if you have transits that are touching anything, even if you don't have anything in this decan of Scorpio, watch something, especially if it's, your Time Lord or something going through this decan, and the idea that you can you can see the ability to let go here just because you have it and you understand what death is. But maybe if you tame it a little bit, which I feel like the cups card talks to taming. I don't know why. Maybe it's the snake coming out of the top.
Yeah. So do you mind describing this Seven of Cups card for the listeners?
Sure. So there are seven cups and they're golden. And they're on top of a cloud, which I really like that.
Mm,
It speaks to I think the debauchery element of that because it is a little Neptunian and Venus
mm,
exalts in Pisces, right? So
mhm.
there is the cloudiness of the Seven of Cups, but one of the cups has a skull on it engraved on it. Have you seen that?
Oh
It's the
yeah.
bottom cup.
With the laurel wreath or what or that crown, whatever that is.
Yes, and there's things in all of these cups. One is a head, one is that's a mushroom. No, it's not a mushroom. What is that?
It's like a person with a white cloak over them, and they're like emanating red energy. Their hands are out. So it's like they're
Uh-huh.
standing in the cup, but
Yes.
you can't identify who they are.
And it does evoke mushroominess.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
snake, a yellow snake in one that's just slithering out a little bit. A castle, but it looks like a
Mhm.
castle of sand to me. It may not
Mm.
be. It just looks like it's not a castle built on the steadiest ground. Jewels, I think that's jewels, and the other one, a laurel wreath in the one with the skull, and a dragon,
Yeah. Looks
or
like it.
yeah, it's a dragon. But I think the nature of having all of these things in the cup speaks to the power that you can harness here. And I think
Mm.
that's what, oh, most important thing, there is a shadow figure of a man with his hand out in the front of all of this, seemingly controlling it to me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That was great. I never consider the castle being built in sand. So I like hearing how people describe it of like, um, just like what do you see in the cups? Because
Mm-hmm.
the other name of this is illusory success. And
Mm.
so it's like all these things that are kind of held by the heavens. They're not anchored on earth. They're not tangible. They're not real. They're just the imaginary realm, which also is valid. Them being imaginary or being held as dreams or goals, like we were talking before we started recording, those are vital. Like we need those in order to make things tangible. Things always exist twice. They first exist in your mind before you make them, if you can make them in reality. And the creative, the creation that comes from Venus, because Venus loves to make things, loves to connect, debauchery or not, she just loves to make those connections. That
Mm-hmm.
also is like with the creation of fantasy and art and imagination and um, the dream world. So like this card, while it could be based on just physical desires and just completely surrendering yourself to every physical desire impulse that you have. It can be being lost in the desires of the mind and like and not being connected to the physical body. I mean, you can go to those ends of the spectrum, those depths of the spectrum, because
We
that's
can.
like a talent that Scorpio has, is like the capacity to go down so far deep and also to have enough stamina to return alive. Because
Yeah.
lots of people can go deep, but not everybody returns. Scorpio returns with the secrets and the mysteries that they have gleaned from going deep.
And this is why Scorpio is related to the occult.
Mm.
You get occult, and occult just means hidden. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think people get scared of that, but that illusory success,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is the part if you work with this deck, and I like to think of astrology as stuff to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and ways you can manipulate it to the better expression, or sometimes you're going to have the lower expression of it no matter what, but
Sure.
the better expression of it would be to see that success is illusory, and then it's manipulation in the way of magic, not
Mm.
in the way of um just to power, just to have it, but in the way of, I know I'm powerful.
Right.
And all success is illusory, so the knowledge of that and the power of that, it's such an interesting card because I could see how it could be good in certain situations to, like, if you want, I'm a musician, and if I want to, book a big gig, that I know that that's not going to do me favors forever. But for this moment, I might want that quick, little nudge up. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in that way, it's also like, honor those moments in which you do have the resources, the Empress,
Mm-hmm.
to create, and before you die.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just like, to make the keywords there. That's, you have the resources, that it's all just sort of magic anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna die. So let's just enjoy it in that way. So you can tame this. I mean, and learn from it. It is a powerful decan, I think. I mean, it's the last decan of the sign relating to the occult,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
mm,
One of the descriptions of this is like kind of being lost in fantasy worlds. And what I was thinking of is like the suggestion to never accept food from a fairy, because if you do, you will be trapped in the fairy world. And don't eat, drink, or dance in the fairy world, because you'll be lost there, and maybe you'll be lost there in a very happy slumber of just eating jellies and jams and pies and dancing naked under a full moon with fawns and the
mhm.
little people and all the magical creatures. But you will be lost there forever, for all time. And so it's those realms are joyful, and they feed into our um, they feed into our desires, but they're not long lasting. And that's the thing about fixed
Yeah.
signs. Fixed signs understand the effort that it takes to sustain things. And while it is perfectly fine to go into this realm, know that you need to return back so that you can sustain, because being lost in a realm forever is in itself a death. And I think that can be a warning sign for this card, is to not be lost in the illusion, but also not be afraid to don't be afraid to not go into the illusion, to glean those deep secrets, glean those mysteries. As someone with Scorpio placements, last week I put on a new pair of boots that I had bought. I bought them online, hadn't tried them on because it had been too hot to wear, and I put them on. I was very happy with them, and then I started walking around, and they were like squonk 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 squonk, like every time I stepped, like the leather would like squeak and squonk. And I was like, in my head, even though I don't really do this, I was like, I can't sneak up on anybody. And like that's the like there's this silent power of being able to like maneuver around. And you can't, if you're making a bunch of noise, then you're scaring all the secrets away. It's kind of how I was like, shoes, like you need to be quieter if you're going to be a part of this girl's outfit, because I'm not going to, but I need to be able to sneak up on things. Sneaking up on secrets and finding things where they're at, not because they changed face because you arrived. There's so much like detective work and mystery seeking that Scorpio has, and it's intoxicating to find these deep secrets and find those jewels and find that lost land and find a dragon and find
Mm,
that mushroom, you know, mystic, whatever it is at the top. um I mean, there's so much like intoxication of finding those mysteries. And I feel like it's important, if you have Scorpio placements, to be able to access those, but always be reminded to return back, like that
yes.
your duty as that death card is to return back and kind of bring it back and not be lost, because I think that this card has that sense of just being lost forever, and a loss of power and a loss of control, which is kind of antithetical to Scorpio. Scorpio has a really great way of harnessing control and power. It's like one of the superpowers of Scorpio, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And after this sign comes Sagittarius, which is knowledge, inner
Mm,
knowledge. And
hmm
I mean, at least that's a really quick way to describe how I feel like these things progress, and you can't have that inner knowing without going through these moments,
Yeah.
and sometimes getting lost a little bit, and it's just a part of the meandering, it feels like.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. So this is the last 10 days of Scorpio. So this would be roughly November 12th to November 22nd. It's definitely in the Northern Hemisphere getting colder. Some people are already getting snow. I feel like we become a lot more indoor at this point. We're
Mm.
less outside, less in the elements. We're becoming more insular. The sun is definitely lower in the sky. I feel like we really start to see it this time of year of like, it is so gray by the time I get off work. Like, where is the sunshine? And so the desire to kind of go inside and be more reflective and maybe drink more wine because it's cold and you're kind of tired from the lack of sun.
The shadows even look different too
Mm,
because of the way the sun is moving further south,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
Or north, south. It doesn't matter. The shadows
The
change.
other way.
I think it's actually the other way. It doesn't matter. But yeah, shadows.
Yeah.
It's a very Scorpio. Even the man on the Seven of Cups it's a
Mm,
shadow
mhm.
almost, so there's this shadow work to it as well. And you always say too that you have to, Scorpio, if you're looking at similarities to the eighth house
Mm,
and shared
mhm.
resources as well. And maybe in ancient times, let's just say, you had to fight over resources at this time, and going into the winter, or maybe had to just get really
Oh yeah.
clear in the storehouse what was yours and what wasn't. um but now, I mean, if you're going to spend more time at home, you do have to have this agreement with your family that we're going to be good to each other. And so
Mm.
that sharing of resources, I think I put that here in this decan of Scorpio as well, because you're about to go into that winter period and things are changing. Who can I trust becomes a thing.
Yeah, yeah, because then it's about survival,
Mhm.
survival to survive the winter so that you don't die, that you're not, subject to that death card. I was cracking up because I was just imagining that, in office politics, if you eat someone's food in the office refrigerator, like, have there been like older versions of that, of like, you ate my spiced pears from the storehouse. I know it was you, little wench. Why did you do that? That was my food for my family. Um, I wrote some things down about the association with Scorpio in the eighth house of thinking about the eighth house as it's a dark house. It can't see the ascendant through traditional aspect. It through its motion, it looks at the seventh. The seventh is the western horizon where the sun sets. So that's actually like where death happens, right? There's
Mhm.
this merging with other, so the identity of singular identity gets merged or dies and becomes part of like a partnership of the seventh house. The eighth house, through that motion, is like facing the house of death, which is the seventh. But the anxiety around all that is in the eighth. And I
Mhm.
think that the anxiety, especially in this card here, because of the tower, is the anxiety often is larger than the events themselves. It's like, if you are bound to other people through shared resources, or bound karmically through your kind of entanglements with other people of eighth house connection, then so much is out of your control. And Scorpio as a fixed sign is about control. And when you
Mhm.
have to surrender control to others in order for your own survival and collective survival, there's a lot of anxiety that kind of gets built up with that.
It's so
Um,
true.
so the last thing I wanted to mention, especially about this tower card, if you can't tell, like, I really do actually appreciate the tower card. I'm not going to say I like it, but I appreciate it because I have seen it happen a lot. And Mars transits happen really fast. And usually if you survive them, you can get over them pretty quickly. They differ in that with Saturn transits, which take forever.
Yeah.
But at Mars as like the act of cleansing as a form of protection, and looking at the armor that the death card wears. I was listening to a podcast called The Emerald, and it was talking about guardianship and protection and the power of purification, whether it's through prayer or planting spiky plants along your perimeter, or burning things, or flower bathing, or whatever action you do as like a psychic armor as protection. Cleansing as purification does protect, and that engagement with protection, it takes diligence and it takes action, and it just felt very Marsy, and it felt important to the positive end of the tower is that if you can work with your own protection of making sure that things are fortified and dismantle structures that you have created that are not helpful and only exist because they've existed for a long time, having that tower energy and destroying it so that you can build something better. I just feel like if having protection and having armor doesn't cut you off from connection to the world, it helps you more capable of dealing with connecting with the world, and also prepares you better to better handle moments of the tower when they do come. It's like that spiritual work. If you have practices of meditation and compassion for yourself and others, when things happen that are involuntary, like that lightning bolt, you're just better prepared to deal with it and grow in ways that you would not have been if you were distracted or not very studious in your own spiritual path. So the amount of armor that you put on isn't necessarily cutting you off from that connection, but it's actually making you open and have the capacity to be even more connected than usual. And capacity, you mentioned that word earlier for Scorpio. Scorpio has such capacity.
Yes, it does. It is, fixed water. And I think of the Mariana Trench, when I think of it. So, it does for emotion, which is what water is,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I feel like we have covered Scorpio, and as much as we can. I'll leave the visual on here because it's just a nice sunny card. And yeah, now that we're wrapped up, do you want to share again your work and how people can find you, and we'll call it a day?
Yeah, ecstaticastrology.com, at Ecstatic Astro, or at Ecstatic Astrology on most social media platforms. And I'm Mandi Rae. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being my Scorpio buddy.
Yeah. Lord
All
of
right,
Debauch.
I'm the Lord of Pleasure. So the two of us together, we would throw great parties.
Yeah.
You already kind of did.
I know we have.
Okay, bye y'all.
Bye.
Like and subscribe.